Gwen.
Good morning, Miss Gwen.
Gwen's going to be our teacher, so.
I like to ask people their names, and then if they're the mischief maker, then I can scream your name.
Got it.
I'm trying to be good with names. The older I get, the less. Now, the first thing I'm going to tell you is everything that you, Miss Claire,
Miss Verity.
Miss Verity said. So the cool thing about an arboretum, I don't know if you guys talked about an arboretum or not. It's a museum for plants, but the thing is, when you come here, the one thing that you can do. What's the one thing you can't do at a museum? How about that? Don't touch anything. Well, here, you can touch anything, but you can't pick. And I'm going to talk about why. But there's a lot of stuff that you would want to touch. So this is like a touch museum. And one of the things that I was told is that you guys are studying the different habitats in New Jersey. And this one is sort of a representative of the woodland part of New Jersey. So we're right on the edge of going up to the mountains. So, but we are not in the mountains of New Jersey. Believe it or not, New Jersey has mountains, but we're not in the sandy shore. We're not at the southern part of New Jersey where it's flat as a pancake. So we're going to talk about what the woods do for us and what it's like to live here. But before we get started, I'm going to tell you, this whole area used to be a big farm, and it was owned by a woman named Frelinghuysen. This is her. And I'm going to show you where this picture is taken. This is when she was a little girl. Have you guys ever been to the Newark Museum in Newark? Yes. You know the house inside that they always decorate up for the holidays? That house inside? That is where she grew up. That was their winter home. And the family, because it was too hot in the city, people didn't have air conditioning then, so rich people had big fancy farms, and that was this, and they grew their own food because they didn't have supermarkets. So this is her here. And this is about 125 years ago, and she's about the same age as you guys. And I always like to point out, look at all the clothes she's got on. So first I'm going to compare you. What's your name? Micah. So he's got sneakers on, he's got bare legs, he's got shorts, t-shirt. Look at her, she's got tights on, high boots, skirt, there's probably a petticoat under there, a hat. Does she look cool? No. So aren't you glad you live in 2015? And this woman here is not her mother, this is her teacher, her governess. So, and I always say they look really unhappy, but I think it's because they're really hot. But this was a farm, and when Matilda Frelinghuysen got very old, she never got married, and she didn't have any children. And when she got quite old, she thought, I'm going to donate my farm to be a park. And the reason why she was going to do that, I'm going to see how your listening skills are, but there was a reason why she decided she was going to donate it. And now it's a park, and it's open every day of the year, and you can come here whenever you want. So, and that was just because she loved to come here so much more than living in her house in the city. And then when she got older, she had an apartment in New York City. So, and this is her. This is also here. And she was famous for her dogs. And this dog's name, it's a Jack Russell. I bet you can't guess what his name was. Jack. So we're going to walk around. But anyway, so these are different gardens that we have designed. This is to show different people what they can grow in their yards, or on their decks, or on their patio, or on their balcony in New Jersey. So these are all gardens that are designed for that. And so you guys ready for walking? Yes. So we're going to walk. All right. We'll go this way. We have here that aren't native to New Jersey. Do you guys know what I mean by native to New Jersey?
That they always live here?
Yes. So, were you born in New Jersey?
Yes.
Then you're a New Jersey native. Somebody said no. Where were you born?
Yes.
Oh, was anybody not born in New Jersey? I was born in Missouri. So
I was born in Georgia.
See? So we're not really natives. So, but you're right, it's a plant that's been here. So you can kind of tell a lot of times when plants, they're not native to New Jersey, they're the ones that are big and showy. These are all tropical rainforest plants. So it looks like a big weedy mess, right? But what this is, in New Jersey we have a law that if you build anything that's water can't get through, like a building with a roof or a parking lot or a sidewalk, you have to make the same amount of space where water can run off. And so it's called a detention basin. It holds the water as it slowly trickles into the soil. And the reason for that is to prevent flooding. So do you guys have flooding where you guys live? Sometimes it rains really hard and the water doesn't. So this is actually a garden, and it's designed to catch the water when we put the parking lot in. So the water runs in here. And all these plants that are in here are native plants. Now it's kind of hot today, so I don't see anything, but a lot of times you'll see a lot of butterflies. And in September, when the monarchs fly south, we're in the flyway. So a lot of these plants are not blooming yet, but they'll be monarchs, and we get a lot of birds in here. And the other thing that started recently is that we are in the flyway for when a lot of the hawks fly south. But usually when you see a detention basin, like in parks or at schools, they're just like bowls and they're planted with grass, like lawn grass. And the first thing that happens when you have a big bowl and it's planted with nothing but lawn grass is the Canadian geese come. And what's the first thing the Canadian geese do? Oh, before that, yeah, then what do? What do you do after you eat? Yeah, they poop. So nobody wants that. And now this is big brush, and the Canadian geese don't like that. So we don't have a Canadian geese problem here because they can't hide in here. And there's also foxes that live in here. And there used to be a raccoon that lived under here. But the other cool thing about this garden here is that if it rains really hard, there are days where we come out here and the water is almost up to our feet. And then it slowly drains back down into the ground. And the thing to keep in mind is that what happens, the water goes through the roots of the plants and it filters, and this water goes into the water supply. So some of the water here is drunk by the people that are here, but a lot of it goes into the rivers that flow into your direction. So if you look down, people, you see that there's trash in here. You guys see trash? That's the other thing that a detention basin does, is it collects a lot of the trash.
There's a house over there?
That is a school that's next door.
No, a little.
Oh, right there? That is where the water drains, that there. Yeah, it kind of looks like a dungeon, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. But on a really rainy day, see where it looks like it's a grid on the top? The water will be over that, and the water goes in there, and it goes into the water system, and it goes down to the waste treatment plant, and it gets cleaned. But a lot of the other water drains back through the roots of the plants. So this is a big filtration process. So that's one of the things why we want to have big woodland areas and plants, areas that are planted like this rather than lawns. Because if you like to drink water, clean water. And this goes into the Rockaway River, the Whippany River, which goes into, ultimately I think goes into the Passaic River, which I think kind of goes near, that's one of the ones that goes into New York. So.
Do you want to take some notes? Can we take a minute?
Plants that are called, they're deciduous. Do you guys know what deciduous means? Deciduous is just a fancy word for they lose their leaves in the fall. So they look like they're going to be evergreen trees, but they're not. These are deciduous trees. So every fall people come here and they're like, oh, your trees are dying. But they're not. They are trees that lose their needles in the fall. We are going to see one. And this tree here, boys and girls, this one here, this is also a deciduous tree. So it loses its needles in the fall. And this is a tree called a dawn redwood. And a dawn redwood tree is a tree that 50 years ago scientists thought was extinct. And they found one grove of these trees in China. So all the dawn redwood trees that grow in the United States came from this one area in China. And the cool thing is that it's too early this time of year, but later in the year when the little cones fall off, you can collect the seeds and they're really easy to grow. And it's like, how did it become extinct when it's so easy to grow? But this is a tree they found fossils at the time, with the time of the dinosaurs. So that's not a native of New Jersey. That's called a dawn, like morning, dawn redwood. Hey, anybody want to guess what this is? I'm telling you right now, this is not native to New Jersey. No.
They use it for they use it like sand for kings.
Yeah, they could. Yeah, she's right.
Like
This
a
is a
machete?
banana tree. But we have theirs, I don't know how many there are. We, the gardener that takes care of this, he plants them out every summer and they get really big. These were about this tall when he stuck them into the ground. So they grow like crazy. And then our greenhouse isn't very big, so he actually cuts them back and brings them inside and replants them every year. But if we had a greenhouse with a really tall roof, we could let them grow all year round. But if we left them in the ground over the winter, they would die because they don't like the cold that we have.
Do they yield bananas?
Ours don't because we cut them back, but if we had a place to keep them growing all year round, they would. These are pretty old. Coleus. Yeah, a lot of these, you know what this is? I bet. This is a sweet potato. So, but what they've done is they bred it. This is what a sweet potato is. This actually gets them, but this one is because it's bred to be a cool color. The little potatoes that grow underground, they're not very good, but you could eat them. No, that's what color it is. And there's another variety that's dark purple. But you can dig the potatoes up at the end of the season, but they're not, they don't look like the big ones like you get.
So you're going to take them out? Some people say that.
I don't know what he does with that.
Some people say that when you plant flowers, you can really bite plants sometimes because plants are healthy.
You can eat a lot of plants. I'm going to show you a lot more that we can eat. All right, we're going to cross the street.
Corn.
Oh, you're so close.
Corn? Is this corn? Corn.
You're close. This is one of my favorite
Corn
plants here.
Corn leaves.
And what this is, it's not corn and it's not bamboo. It is a cousin of both of those. Believe it or not, both corn and bamboo are a kind of grass. And when you think of grass, we think of grass like that. But this is a grass. This is one of the tallest grasses that grows in the world. This is called reed grass. And if we were really motivated, we could take these stalks. And if you play a musical instrument, this is where the plant that they make the reeds for oboes, clarinets, saxophones. This plant, the gardener cuts it all the way to the ground in the wintertime, and it's gotten this tall since the growing season started around May 1st. And by the time summer's over, it'll be taller than that lamp. And this is a plant that they use. It grows really, they call it aggressive, because it grows like crazy. And they used this in Panama when they were building the Panama Canal because it was very swampy and people got all kinds of diseases from the mosquitoes and they wanted to dry up the swamps, so they planted this 150 years ago or whenever they were building the Panama Canal, and they're still trying to kill it because it's so aggressive. We only have this started out as a clump about this big.
It's like bamboo.
It's a cousin.
It's a cousin.
It's a grass.
Same family.
Yeah, they're all, if you start looking at them, if they all look like this,
Yes.
it's a grass. So you think you want to put this on your lawn so you can mow it every day? All right,
They
move
look
on.
like bamboo. Ooh, what's that?
Which one? Oh, it's a good sign. That talks about. This is a garden where everything, in this garden here, boys and girls,
Basically,
this is called our Four Seasons garden. So when you walk through this, it doesn't matter which day of the year you walk through, there's always something in bloom. So we'll see what we see today. I mean, you could come here in December and there would be flowers that are in bloom.
great.
This is honeysuckle.
Honeysuckle. What is it called?
Honeysuckle. This is honeysuckle. A lot of times you'll see hummingbirds on it, but I think there's too many of us. And this is a pretty cool plant. This is, if you feel this one, I'll pick one leaf. This is a plant.
Whoa, it's so soft. Oh,
So
yeah.
if you want, you
It's
can
like a
pet
carpet.
it.
It's like a carpet.
So this plant here is called lamb's ear. Can you see why it's called lamb's ear?
Yes, because it's soft. It feels like a lamb's fur.
Yeah, and why do you think it has fur on the leaves?
Because
From what?
it protects it from the winter.
No.
It protects
This
it
kind of dies back, but you guys are thinking on the right way. It does protect it.
protects it from the animals who eat it.
It protects it from herbivores or animals that might eat it, because if you were an animal and you were going to eat that plant, you would think, I don't want to eat that, it's fuzzy like a sock. So, or I say, like, you know, if you went to school and you had for lunch they gave you a sandwich and it was made out of 2 pieces of sock and a cotton ball, You would not eat that. You would try to eat that plant instead. So this plant protects itself with its fuzzy leaves. I mean, we just grow it. We eat plants. Everything you eat, boys and girls, no matter what you eat, comes from a plant. Let's see what we see. I can't think of anything right now. Plus, they spray a lot of stuff with deer spray here.
Wait, this is poison? It's not poison. This is poison. It's a bush.
This is a kind of pea. Not all peas are edible, but plants, you can tell a plant is a pea plant because it has pods on it. This one is a kind of pea. This one doesn't have pods. There's one down there that has pods on it. And sometimes the peas, we can't digest them. They're too hard to digest. And you get a stomach ache. And I believe this is one of them.
This is poison. Are those
No, there's no poison ivy. That's a weed. You are right. That's vinca. That's a good plant to grow. A lot of animals don't like to eat that because it's too tough.
Because I just saw like a bug go in and then went out.
Here's one of the same kind of plant. See the pods on it? So this is, you can see, this isn't like the kind of pea, so the peas are in there, see? So if the plant has a pod on it and there's seeds inside, it's always in the pea family.
Grass is not a big tree. A redwood is. Wow. It's not like a redwood.
That is a, I believe this is some kind of witch hazel, I believe. That's a tag.
Are those some of them poison?
It is a witch hazel. Some plants are poisonous. That's how they protect themselves. This one is not.
Wait, how can you tell if they're poisonous? Can you tell why they have red on them?
No, that doesn't tell you. Because think of like a tomato. That has red on it, and that's not poisonous. But people did think that it was poisonous.
This is poison.
This is a flower called a spice bush, and that's the flower. I mean, a plant. That's the flower. It just looks like it's got kind of sunburn. This is a plant that likes to grow in the understory. There used to be a big maple tree right in here, but it died. So a lot of these plants are trying to get used to growing where they used to be in kind of shade, and now they're in full sun. Watch out for the hose, my friends.
Cattails.
This is a kind of grass. So this is the kind of grass, and if you touch it very carefully, people, you need to be careful because a lot of animals won't eat this grass because, believe it or not, some grasses that are big grasses like this, the edges are sharp enough that you could get a paper cut. So if you were a deer that would come along and eat a plant, you would think twice about eating this because it might hurt your mouth. Oh yeah.
The edges are sharp.
Oh, you can. They're kind of No, this is a butterfly.
Because I could tell.
You want to know how you can tell it's a butterfly, not a moth? There's a really easy way to tell.
Because it has
Can you hold it on your hand?
The way you could tell it is because it got colors
can try.
on it. Some moths don't have colors. I could catch it.
No.
It's just a
There's all different kinds. It's a butterfly, people, and you can tell it's a butterfly because if it lands, if we let it land,
You can see it's
a butterfly, when it lands, its wings are closed together. And when a moth lands, its wings are open.
It was closed. And also, you could tell if it's a moth because moths don't have any color on them. That one didn't have any. What are these things?
Those are the seed pods.
Are these
Yeah, this is the plant. Now, people, when you're walking by, pet this one. I always tell people to pull on it like you're pulling on a cat's tail. And then you want to smell your hand. Just, you don't have to pull it up.
It smells like pipe, like, it smells like a candy, kind of a candy. I mean,
So this is a plant. I think it smells like gum. You know that pink gum, like
yeah,
Zika?
it's like
But this plant here,
peppermint. It smells like peppermint.
and you know what? It is a mint, and this is why you guys are going to be the experts now. If you feel this, I picked one. Feel the shape of the stem and tell me what shape it is. See, feel the stem and see if you can tell what shape it is.
He told you? Square. Square.
It's a square, and a rectangle is a square. If a plant has a square stem, it is in the mint family. Because it's a big
It
family.
smells like mint.
So I'm going to have you feel some other stuff. If it is a mint plant, it has a square stem. This plant is called catmint. So who do you think likes this the best?
Cats.
Yeah, this is the one that people dry and you give it to their cats and they act cookie bananas.
Some cats, like, they just go through
So
these bushes.
people don't eat this one. It smells good, but we don't eat this one. It doesn't taste good to us. It wouldn't make you sick. Usually you can tell if it has a square stem. It's a mint. Most mint plants.
Yeah, if you look on the top, you can see it has a square.
Yeah. So that's what you can kind of tell. So when if you go around and you feel different plants and you feel a square stem, you know that it is a mint plant, and you could eat it. We don't eat this one. It doesn't taste good because you think about different plants you do eat. You don't eat.
That's a sunflower?
That's so beautiful.
That's a daisy?
Now, this is one of my favorite plants in the whole Arboretum. The Arboretum's 125 acres, so that's a lot of land. And I have to say, this is one of my favorite trees. And one of the reasons I like the flowers, because I always think it looks like there's fried eggs all over the tree. But this plant, if you look at the bark, looks sort of like camo. So the bark is really cool looking. And the other thing I like about this plant, this is a tea plant. So anybody like to drink tea, iced tea, hot tea?
Yes.
Green tea.
Green tea. This is a plant that's in the tea family, so we could take these leaves and dry them. But this is one that we don't do that to because it doesn't taste very good. Some of them taste better than others.
Can you put the flower inside of tea?
No, it's usually the leaves that people dry. You could. I don't know. It wouldn't make you sick, but it probably doesn't taste good. You know how something tastes good?
Yeah, I got that one.
These are the leaves. These are the flower pods. Some of Who's dead? Well, all the ones that fell down, they're the ones that are done. They've probably been pollinated. You guys know what I mean by pollinated?
Yes, that means like they are almost dying.
Well, they're either pollinated so they can make seeds, either by an insect
They're
or the
making
wind.
new ones.
Well, they make a seed pod. And look, and these are all flowers.
It's a circle, right? What kind of tree is it?
This is a pine tree,
Pine tree.
and I'm going to tell you how you can tell it's a pine tree. It is an evergreen tree. Everybody knows what an evergreen tree is?
Yeah.
What's an evergreen tree?
Oh,
sorry. Yeah. So this is a tree, this has got what we call variegated leaves. Each one of these needles, so it's not a complete green tree. But these needles, usually animals don't eat this because the needles would hurt their mouths. But this is how you can, here's your big chance, everybody's going to be an expert now. If you look at these, see I'm going to pull a cluster off. If I pull them off, there's two in it. Sometimes there's more. And if it's a tree and the needles come off in a group or a cluster, it's a pine tree. And I always remember P is for pine and P is for plural. And a lot of plants you'll see needles and they're by themselves and they're single. And that's usually a spruce. You want to know what that is? You know what those are?
Yeah, that's oak wood. I mean jungle.
So here, if you guys want to get your magnifying glasses out, are you the only one with a magnifying glasses? What do you think made those holes? You guys are so right. This was made by a kind of woodpecker called a sapsucker. And you can tell it's a sapsucker because they're in straight lines. So a sapsucker, when they make holes, they go up and down in straight lines and around in straight lines. Woodpeckers, regular woodpeckers, just do random holes. And this is the sap that's coming out.
Sap? Yeah, they use this to make rubber.
And why do you think the woodpeckers were pecking this?
So they were getting because that's what they eat for food.
Well, they were looking for the bugs. So this tree is probably not long for the world.
You use sap to make rubber.
Yeah, but not this kind. I mean, people used to take this kind of pine sap to fix their roofs or when they made log cabins.
I know where they're
Sprinkling.
so spicy. Spicy. Because I see it all the time. Every time I see it.
Go under the tree.
This is a maple tree. A maple tree.
Yes, who said this is a maple?
Fire glow, Japan.
This is a Japanese maple. It is a cousin of the kind of maples that grow in New Jersey. Now the thing that you got to know about Japanese maples, if you look at it, each one of these little things on here has 2 seeds in it. And if you look on just this tree, you can see there's a lot of these keys with seeds in them.
Isn't it?
And just about all these seeds hit the ground and they start to grow. So these are actually considered invasive trees now.
This is a helicopter.
Yeah, and then people sometimes split them on their nose. You know what? They work better. They don't helicopter when they're together. When you split them apart. Oh, this was not very good. There's bigger ones over here.
The wind blows to the way.
Yeah, but they work better when you split them apart.
Because you're too far. I'm too far.
So this is a native tree to New Jersey. This is one that grows all over New Jersey. This is a sugar maple. And what do we get from a sugar maple?
Sugar and maple syrup. Maple syrup.
We get maple syrup, and these are different holes that I've tapped this tree. This tree I tapped this past winter. That was this hole, and you know how much sap I got out of this tree? Nothing. Because remember, winter felt like it was never going to end. This tree was out in the open and it was exposed, so it didn't like the cold weather, so it didn't ever start to run until it finally got nice weather. But the year before from this tree, when the winter was different, I got almost 90 gallons of sap from one tree. And if I boil that down, you have to boil it, you get about a gallon of maple syrup. And then this sign here is about an Asian longhorn beetle, which is a really bad bug. They kill the maple trees. That's the larva. That's what they look like. And I actually saw one once, and they're about that size, and they're so creepy. I stepped on it. Yeah, they came in packing crates. This is a sugar maple.
Do they come out of the tree?
When they hatch, they look like this.
It was a sugar.
They come in the wooden packing crates.
Someone dropped.
I can't touch anything.
You know what? You're still carrying my pictures. Yes, this was their house, and we are standing. That's sort of like right there.
That's her house?
This was their summer house. They were. And you know how they made all their money? People always freak out when they hear this. You know, the house that's in the Newark Museum is called Ballantyne House. Because that was, Matilda Frelinghuysen's mother was Sarah Ballantyne. And their family made all kinds of money from beer. Ballantyne beer used to be a big beer that was made in New Jersey.
Beer?
Beer. And the thing about beer is, like, if you're thirsty, what do you do now? You're at home, you're thirsty, you're watching TV, you're thinking, I'm thirsty, what do? Yeah, you go, and the first thing you do is you get some water. Well, 150 years ago, water was dirty. We didn't know. We didn't have sewers like we do now. We didn't know how to clean our water. And one of the things that people drank, everybody drank, even people your age, was beer. It wasn't quite like the beer that we drink now. It was much thinner. It was more waterier. But that was one of the ways that they would kill all the germs that were in the water. So beer was big money then, because everybody drank beer. And the Ballantyne beer is, you know, by the airport, there's that big Budweiser brewery. That's kind of where the Ballantyne factory used to be. But that's where the real money came from, beer. Wow. This is another one of my favorite trees. This is a tree that comes from around the Mediterranean. This is called a blue atlas cedar. This is a plant, and if you read in the Bible, they talk about the cedars of Lebanon. They're really talking about this plant. And this plant is really cool. It's an evergreen, and it's cool because it has two kinds of cones. Most evergreens make cones, but it has two kinds. And this is a robin's nest. And you can almost always tell a robin's nest because they're trashy. See how it's got like trash hanging out of it? It's got like, there's a piece of paper. And a lot of times if you look at nests, you'll see a lot of trash in them. I've seen them with like pieces of Walmart bags and pieces of tarp. And I hear, I don't think that's the robin. Sometimes when we stand there and hear the robins get really mad, so she must not have eggs in it right now. So right now it's closed. They're redoing the floors. we're going to go over to the shade of where we'll be under the trees.
Are we going to go inside?
Are you guys afraid of a little rain? Should we go get our hands dirty and plant and then come back out when it stops raining?
Yes.
All right. All right, we're
I
going
think it will stop raining.
Where are the girls? This is a slice of a California redwood tree. So where did it come from? And you can tell why it's called a redwood? Sort of? Kind of reddish.
Reddish brown.
Now I heard somebody say you can tell how old it is. How would you tell how old it is?
They have rings. They got big rings on it. Like that you could tell how
Who
old.
wants to guess? I'm going to tell you right now, it's not 23 years old. So those numbers correspond to different rings.
123 years old.
This was a kid did this for an Eagle Scout project in the Scouts.
300.
And he counted them. And this tree, you're very close. This tree was 268 years old when it was cut down. And you start out here, if you're a tree scientist, you start out here, and you start here and you count to the middle, which was right there. So it was approximately 268. Then he figured out, we knew when this tree was cut down, it was cut down in 1990, so he subtracted backwards. And these numbers correspond to different things that were happening in New Jersey. So ring number 4 was when George Washington was here before the United States was the United States. So what does that say? Number 4 says 1777. So this tree was around in 1777. Were any of you guys around in 1777?
No.
Just him. So, and then 11 is when Abraham Lincoln was president. Were any of you guys around when Abraham Lincoln was president?
No.
So this tree has seen a lot of history. Now if you look at the rings, you see they're not all the same size. Sometimes they're really skinny and sometimes they're really fat. That tells me how much rain there was that year. So like this year, do you think it was rainy or dry? Dry. And then here they had really rainy years. So if you pay attention to TV, you'll hear they're having terrible droughts in California. Do you think the rings look like this or like this?
This look like a storm.
Oh, that's just because it's old and it rots. Now, most people think these trees only grow in California. They do, and they like California because they don't have winter like we do, so they grow all year round. But we have one that's a cousin of this kind of tree. It's a redwood, but it's been grown to be especially happy in New Jersey. So we're going to go look at it, and you can see what they look like.
It's the cat thingy, right?
No, look at it. What do you think that is?
Tomato.
Yes, this is a tomato. It's not ripe yet. Huh? Well, they're not ripe yet, so this is another thing. These are all herbs. These are plants we can eat. This is a bay tree, but it's got bugs. That's so sad.
You can eat this is
It's not
No, they're not ripe yet. I don't remember what kind of
They smell poison.
Those are tomatoes, but they're not ripe yet. Most tomatoes, we think of them, they're red. So here's the thing. We looked at a lot of plants today. The thing that you need to think about plants is that if you are alive and you're on Earth, you should be grateful to plants because they make the oxygen we breathe, and everything that we eat comes from a plant.
We could eat this this time.
Everything.
No, you can't eat that. Why did you take it all?
Well, you know, we'll squish that, see what's inside.
I think I ate seeds.
Think about what you eat. What do you guys have for lunch? You know?
No. Chicken. It might be a sandwich.
Does a sandwich come from a plant?
McDonald's.
Everything you eat comes from a plant. The bread. What if it's a ham sandwich? Does that come from a plant? Well, ham, do you know where ham comes from?
Pig.
It comes from a pig. And what's a pig eat?
Ham. No.
What's a pig eat? How about a cow? What's a cow eat?
Grass.
And grass is a plant. So cheese comes from a cow.
Cheese does come from a cow. Oh yeah, milk.
Here's our redwood. Redwood. This is our redwood that's been bred to live in New Jersey. So this is one. But this one is not very big because it gets cold here in the wintertime and plants usually stop growing because what happens is there's no water in the stem because what happens to water when it gets really cold? If there were water in the stem in the wintertime when it was that cold, the stem would burst. So this tree is probably about 75 years old, but it grows very slowly because it's only growing in the growing space. Now the easiest way to tell how old that tree is by what? Yeah, but if you cut this down, did you bring your saw? So, did you bring a saw? So if we cut this tree down, how much hot water do you think we'd all be in? A lot. So, but I'm going to show you, there's a trick to guessing how old a tree is. And then what a lot of people, like if you're a tree scientist or a guy that works on trees, you can kind of estimate how old a tree is. Yes. You brought your chainsaw? Oh. You're going to guesstimate? Do you like math?
Yes.
Oh good, I'm going to use you.
Is that an oak tree?
It is.
I like mine. It's not mine. I like up north. I like that.
Everybody can stand with their toes on the edge of the circle.
Hey,
Where's my math right?
Angela.
Here, everybody stand with their toes right on the edge of the wood.
Tree.
So this is, somebody when we were walking up said, is this an oak tree? Who was that? It is. This is an oak tree. It is a red oak. In your school, you study New Jersey and third grade or fourth grade. So this is going to put you ahead of the game. This is the state tree of New Jersey. And the reason why it's a state tree is that this tree grows all over the state of New Jersey. And this is one of the biggest trees that grows in the woodland parts of New Jersey. And this one, I can look on this tag, and the tree has a number. And if I look it up, it's like the card catalog in the library. I think they have cards in it. You know how books have a number? Yeah. You know, a lot of libraries, you know, there's a book, a number on the spine. All the plants here have a number on the spine, and if I type it into the computer, everything I need to know, who planted it, when it was planted, what kind of tree it is, what nursery they bought it. So that would be the cheater way of figuring it out. Or, here's my math friend. Come here. You are my measuring stick. Turn around and face your pals. So stick your arms out.
I'll hold.
From here to here is approximately 50 years. So you are my measuring stick. And to measure this tree, what do you think you need to do? How are you going to measure this tree? We're not going to go up and down, we're going to go around. So now you're going to be a tree hugger. Come over here and you're going to hug this tree. So hug this tree. Now you got to hug it. You got to really hug it, my friend. Hug it. Now do his arms go all the way around the tree? So is it older than 50 years or younger than 50? Older. So you.
200.
Stick your arms out. You're going to go on the other side and you're going to hug the tree. And then believe it or not, you're going to actually kind of hold hands with your friend there. Yeah. So now, but look, they kind of overlap.
158 years old.
No, but they overlap. So if this is 50 and this is 50, that's 100. But they kind of overlap a little bit. So it's probably a little bit less than 100 years old.
Like
And you
one
can
day.
estimate just by hugging the tree. All right. You're done.
Don't forget.
And you can do that with any kind of tree that grows in New Jersey that loses its leaves in the fall.
Outdoor.
This is a baby oak tree. This is an acorn that fell off this tree that I collected last fall.
Oh, wow.
And there's a bunch of them in here. See, here's an acorn. Everything to grow this tree started out in a seed this small. So that's the mind blower. So this is it. But this is, oh really? I haven't read that. I have to say I never read the laws. But here, I'm going to pull this out. So this one, I started it when I collected them in the fall. And then I, believe it or not, I put them in the refrigerator. Because if I leave them out here, you see how many acorns there are in the ground? None. Because the squirrels eat them all. So I can't leave them out here. I collect them, and I put them in soil, and I put them in a plastic bag, and I put them in my refrigerator. I have a refrigerator here that I do nothing but put plants in. Because, does the plant have a brain? No. So the plant doesn't know that the inside of my refrigerator is not wintertime. It's cold. It thinks, oh, it's cold in here, it's time to go dormant. And then I bring it out and it's in the warm classroom and it thinks, yay, it's warm, it's springtime. And it starts to grow. And that's what I did with these. Whoops. So here's the acorn. See how it's split? And the roots that came out. And this is the acorn. There's nothing there. That's just the seed coat. This is a little bit of plant. It's the food. And then the first thing that comes out is the root. And then it grows. And I've got these leaves.
Is it a taproot or a fiber?
This is a taproot. You are right. And then these are the fibrous roots. And there were probably more, but I broke it. But it's really hard to kill out. So that's the cool thing you can do. You can collect seeds if they're on the sidewalks and you can start your own forest. Those are the caps. But all those caps that you see on the ground at one time had an acorn attached that the squirrels ate. All right, we're going to cross the street again. We have little houses around. People came and made houses for fairies. All this stuff. You tell me.
No.
Not real. People pay them.
Now here's a question for you. Why would it be important to know how old a plant is? Why is it important to know how old you are? There's that. What if I thought you were 29 years old? You wouldn't be going into the 4th grade, that's for sure. So, what do you think?
Maybe you could know how old it is to know how much things it eats.
That's exactly right. This tree, this is another sugar maple tree. This sugar maple is actually at the end of its life. And sugar maple trees only live to be about 125 years old. So we can estimate the same way how old this tree is. But I can also tell how old this tree is. I can tell that this tree is at the end of its life because I used to tap this maple tree. You can see all these holes. But like the last 3 or 4 years, I didn't get any sap out of it all, and that tells me the tree is failing. So it's getting too old. That's just from the water that came out of the tree. Oh, you want to see what happens when you kick a tree?
Yes.
I'll show you. Come this way. Okay, this is up New Jersey. Remember I talked about natives? So this is kind of what a native woodland would look like in New Jersey. So if you're driving around and you see a lot of plants.
You are very
You know what this plant is called? What would you call this plant if you were going to have this plant?
a wedding flower?
Well, you're thinking the right thing. This plant, the common name for this plant is called the snowball bush.
I can throw it to someone.
You can tell me what it is. Would you want to eat this plant if you were a deer?
No.
Why not?
It has spikes.
This has spikes. This is a holly tree. This is evergreen. It's green all year round, so it needs to protect itself. And it's got these spikes on the leaves, so this doesn't get eaten. Although I see some bugs have eaten it. What do you think? Looks like a butt.
It is.
This is called a burl. And what this is, it's a scar. Did anybody ever get stitches, have to go to the hospital and get stitches, or you cut yourself and you get a scar, you skin your knee and it never heals right? That's what happened here. This is a scar. And it could be that somebody kicked the tree, it could be a bug hit it, it could be a deer ate it. But the cool thing is, if I could slice this off, if you had brought your saw, we could cut this off and they would have rings in it. And we could see how old. You know those rocks, the geodes, you've ever seen those? They look sort of like that inside, except it's wood and you can count the rings. So, but this is, I always like to say that this is some injury from some 9-year-old who kicked the tree. What do you think? All right, we're going to go this way.
What if you hit
One of the girls was asking about chestnut trees.
Amani.
So these are, this is the sugar maple here, but we have chestnut trees here. We have 2 kinds of chestnuts. One of them is called a horse chestnut. That's kind that people don't eat. Who do you think eats it? Horse. And the other kind is not
Just like this is like our chair. Kind of. It's like we're camping. Yeah.
Now, one of the last things, because when Mrs. Tribal talked to me about booking this, she said you were talking about the different parts of New Jersey. If we could travel back in time, if you had brought a time machine, you didn't bring a saw nor a time machine. If we could travel back in time before the United States was the United States, this is kind of what New Jersey looked like. You can see there's like low-growing plants, there's ferns, there's big old trees, there's trees that have fallen down. But what happened in New Jersey is we all came here and there were farmers. And then after we decided we all wanted to live in houses in the suburbs, we cut down all the trees and the deer moved in. And a lot of places when you drive around you don't see any low plants because the deer have eaten them all. But this is sort of what New Jersey used to look like and we're trying to show. So you got weedy bottom. This is called the understory plants, and then the big plants. This is a horse chestnut. I don't see any fruit on it yet, but it gets these big things. They call them conkers.
How about that red?
I think that's a leaf that's just all dried up. Yeah. These are all fairy houses. We had a day here where people could come and build houses for fairies. So you have to decide if you believe in fairies or not.
I do.
We're going to cut around the corners and walk across the bridge. You know, special request.
That was like all.
I think this is one of the last things I'm going to show you. Do you guys know what these plants are? You don't? Get out.
Wait, I know where it is.
I'm going to pick one. Don't tell anybody.
They are plants.
Now, people, this is a plant and there's a big one there. This is a fern. And if my friend had brought his time machine and we could travel back to the time of the dinosaurs, you would see a lot of really big leaf plants. Earth was much warmer then, and plants were competing to gather as much sun and air and stuff. So the leaves were really big. This is actually one whole leaf. A lot of people think each one of these little things is a leaf, but really this is all the leaf. So it's really quite a big leaf. And that's because it wanted to grow faster than those other plants over there. So if you see a plant that's got really big leaves, like those ferns there, those ferns, like this one. This is one whole leaf. Wow. So this, yeah. So you think that it's one of these little leaves is a leaf, but it's really all of this is one leaf. So this is a big leaf. That's your first clue that this plant was on Earth when dinosaurs were on Earth. Then you can travel back and prove me wrong.
I want a time machine.
Favorite plant, boys and girls?
Time machine. I'm on the other side of you.
This is my other favorite plant. This is a plant. If you look at it, it has three different shaped leaves. It's got a regular shaped leaf. It's got this one that looks like a mitten. See this one that looks like a mitten? And then it's got this one that looks kind of like a hand. This is one of the only plants that grows in New Jersey that has three different shaped leaves. And it usually has them when they're little. See this one here? I say that's like, you know, the mitten. This is like the Star Trek hand and the regular hand.
Star Trek.
This is a sassafras tree. And sassafras, you can tap it.
In the time of the dinosaurs too, right?
I don't know about that one. That you'd have to look up. But a sassafras tree, this is one you could tap like a maple tree. You tap the sap out, you boil it down the same way, and what it turns into is the flavoring for root beer.
Yay!
So if you like root beer, this is a tree that you should be, you know, kindly to. So who likes root beer? So, but you can't do it now because it's the wrong time of year to tap a tree, and this one's a baby. So you need to know how old the tree is so you can tap it. The tree needs to be about 25 years old before it can start to be tapped. But this is a root beer tree.
Half a hug. Missed one. One
So it reflects more, so you can see the reflection of everything.
Is that shallow or deep? They put the water in before it was dry. Paint was dry. Yeah.
Yeah, can I bring it to you, the pencil?
They're not. Well, we could be.
Well, we could keep on keeping on, or you could go eat lunch. All right.
Yeah, I'm gonna eat lunch and then we can eat.
So I said we could keep on keeping on, or they could eat lunch. And I said if people are really rich now, you know, they have fancy cars, they live in fancy apartments, they go all over the world. One of the things that people did 150 years ago to show how rich they were is to have big fancy gardens. This was the front lawn, and when your school bus came up that driveway there, that was actually the servants' driveway. You came up the back way. The real entrance is over there. So the people would come along and they would do this, and you'd see how fancy the lawn was, and blah, blah, and they would go up there where that man is walking, and you'd get out there. But where we are right now, if you look, it's really flat. Believe it or not, this used to be the tennis
It
court.
looks like a mountain.
This used to be the tennis court right where we're sitting.
My toes so long.
But we're going to go around the corner. Matilda Frelinghuysen was really famous for her dogs. She used to raise chows. You know, chows are the dogs with the big purple tongues.
They got purple tongues?
Yeah, they're creepy. But they're big furry things.
Yeah, they're
But
really
she
furry.
has, she was famous. She went all over the world with her dogs. Oh, I got you guys. Here's a question for
Oh,
everybody.
which one? Yeah.
Here's a question for everybody. I feel like I'm eating bug guts.
Okay.
If you're really quiet, what do you hear besides?
Airplane?
That's not an airplane. It's something else.
Transportation.
What kind of transportation? Cars. Right on the other side of all this wooded area is Highway 287. That highway, when they were going to build it, they were going to come right across where we were standing before, because it's cheaper to build a highway on the top of a mountain than it is to go around. But Matilda Frelinghuysen went to the state of New Jersey and said she would donate, at that time it was 500 acres, she would donate all her land to be open space for a park if they rerouted the highway. So that's why we hear it over there. So we can have this nice big green space running it. This is what New Jersey really used to look like. Now this is our fern garden, people. All these plants were pretty much around when dinosaurs were.
I'll let everybody.
So, what do you know about this plant? Just by looking at the leaves.
It came from the past. It got It's a fossil.
This is a plant that was around. They found fossils. This is the magnolia tree. This is a cone. You believe it or not, this plant is actually a cousin of a pine tree, and this actually makes a cone.
I knew that.
So, but you can see that this was a time for the dinosaurs by the side of the leaves. I'm just going to leave these back.
That's the most amazing leaf I've seen. Is that a plastic cup? I got in the clothes, bring it back, and I named it.
So see how this garden, the path kind of curves around? It curves around because right in here are a whole bunch of dog graves. The Matilda Frelinghuysen, they're in there. If you look, you can see them. They look like just squares of concrete. There's three that are good. So that's what's in there. So the garden had to be planted around those dog graves. This is a great place to take a picture. If you want to take a picture of all the kids on the bench.
Oh, yeah.
How about everybody go sit on that bench and you get a picture of it?
Do you want to get bit?
This is a plant called a foxglove, because if you've ever seen foxes, a lot of them have white paws. So this, I'm going to pass it around. If you look inside, there's dots in here. These dots are an indicator to a bee that there's pollen in there, because bees have different eyes. They see differently.
Weeding pills?
This is called foxglove. The Latin name for this scientific name is digitalis, and sometimes old people take digitalis. It's actually a medicine. This plant doesn't get eaten by animals because it makes their heart race. But we've discovered that if you can make a medicine out of this, and if your heart doesn't beat regularly, you can take this and it helps your heart beat or speed up. So this plant, it's a daddy long leg. No, don't switch the bridge. This tree that's all by itself in the middle of the lawn.
Wait.
Go there and wait for me.
Where are we going? See, all of them dropping it.
Look at the girls, look at the boys.